What's going on, people? Good morning and welcome to United View. Welcome to your morning view, your latest episode, your latest news, your latest transfers, your latest everything Manchester United. Because I got it wrong the other day, the international break is actually over now. Because I think that 2 days ago, on Tuesday, we done a show in the morning. I was like, yeah, it's over. I was like, don't really watch it. Then I saw Scott McTominay turn into flipping Prime Van Nistelrooy that night. And then I was like, I think the international break's still on. So big up to him, by the way. Big up to Scott.
Yeah,
big up to Terminator, as Bruno says. Quite a bit to get through this morning in a short, sharp, zippy, punchy show for you guys. We're going to be talking about exits and how Erik ten Hag needs to raise funds in order to take us forward. Obviously, all we've been talking about is takeovers, and all the money that we're potentially going to have from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, from Elliott Hedge Fund, from Qatar, etc. Whoever it is, whatever it is. Takeover. But again, we have also spoke about FFP, and like Owen said yesterday on the show, don't expect masses of money to be spent instantly. There's still a long way to go. And that has led to reports, or just in general, there's been reports yesterday, back end of yesterday, suggesting that Man United need to raise funds, need to raise cash in order to reinvest into the squad. But it started at none other than Harry Maguire, his summer exit, ? Owen, what we got?
Yeah, so it was a really interesting piece written by Rob Dawson talking about, I suppose, like you said, FFP and the summer transfer acquisitions that we might be looking at. But it's kind of all underpinned by United most likely will have to sell in order to boost the transfer budget. And according to Rob Dawson, it's likely that any reasonable offer for Harry Maguire, the Manchester United captain, will be considered, particularly if Erik ten Hag firms up his interest in Ajax's Jurrien Timber. Now, if you cast your mind back all the way, Fleck, all the way to sort of the beginning or prior to the transfer. It's even before. It's before Frankie. He was the first one. Jurrien Timber was the first one. And Louis van Gaal said, well, if you go to United, maybe you don't play. I don't know if you play in the World Cup and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, he decided to stay. I think he signed a new contract.
Signed a new deal,
I believe there might be a release clause in that. Nevertheless, if Ten Hag decides once again, I'm going to go back in for him, or just in general, we're going to need to sell to buy him. One would think that Maguire is one of those players that could actually command not as high as 80 million, but certainly a large amount of money that could be then reinvested. But it continues with Rob Dawson saying that sources have told ESPN that United's coaching staff like Maguire's ability on the ball, but they also have concerns about his tendency to rush out to win challenges and a perceived lack of mobility. In addition to that, sources have told ESPN that Maguire can, on occasion, focus too much on social media criticism, despite being advised to stay off Twitter in the immediate aftermath of matches. And then we can go on to the bit a bit later on for the rest of the players. But that Maguire thing really interested me because I remember a conversation we had. It might have been just before the season started, and we were talking about who was better on the ball. I think it was at the time it was Eric Bailly or Harry Maguire. Yeah. And we did come to the conclusion that Harry Maguire isn't terrible on the ball.
Everyone laughed at me.
Well, but there was, but in fairness, there was sort of a distinction, wasn't there? You were saying that Harry Maguire, his ping, if you will, his long passing's all right. He can do that pass. My issue was more with his sort of close ball control and his sort of stepping out from defense. And we've kind of seen the both of that this season, haven't we? It's also interesting that they say, he's got a tendency to rush out because we've seen that. He gets caught out of position a lot.
And that is not being able to go in one-on-one situations knowing you can get spun. So I have to win it now because I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I'm going to try and anticipate
it. Comes at me. Exactly.
And I can't anticipate it. And a perceived lack of mobility. And I saw that, I went, perceived.
Yeah. He's been he's using the correct words so that it doesn't come under, I don't know, not slander, but do you know what I mean? Just using the correct tone and terminology is Rob.
Yeah. It's a nice way of saying slow.
Yes, exactly. What was it? Perceived lack of mobility.
Perceived lack of mobility.
Yeah, slow. If you was writing that on Twitter, well, he was, to be fair, but you'd save characters, you put slow.
I think KG's got a perceived lack of mobility.
Oh, no, you take it. No, I haven't got a soundboard. Do you know what I said about KG?
Do you disagree with me?
I don't, because I've said statements. I've said statements to that effect, or very similar before. To his face. I've said many times. I think he has no pace. And I said I know this by the way he walks. Just by the way he walks. I said this because the way he walks is very. It hasn't got like that. It doesn't suggest there could be a change of direction at any moment. It doesn't suggest that he could glide across the turf or the concrete at this point. He was walking on the pavement. And then I done a little. Then when we was in Shanghai, not Shanghai, when we was in Bangkok.
Oh yeah,
on that like
on the pitch.
He just it really. He just proved it.
But the thing is, though, maybe that's a bit harsh of me because he can be very agile. Though he's not very fast, but he can be very agile. Have you seen him dance?
Yeah, he can.
You see what I mean?
With the music on the dance floor, but but dancing, I think he's kind of like he knows what he's going to do. You're responding to the music. I feel like the football, it's a bit. The ball could go different. Other players come in your vision. You got to change. I don't think he's going to be as responsive. So what we're saying, KG's kind of. Nah, Weghorst is probably a bit more agile. I'll probably. Is he just Maguire then? Wait, can I say something? This is like I like cussing KG in it because he's my brother in it. But this is really bad. He has nothing to do with this. But it's just funny. It's funny making it about him. Put in the comments if you think KG is the slowest person on United View. Just put correct. KG is just spam the comments. So if KG ever goes on this video without watching it and he sees yes, KG, yes, he's gonna think, what's going on?
Or KG equals Maguire. KG lacks mobility.
We're really terrible. He has you just made him catch some next kind of strays that he wasn't even on my mind right now. I wasn't even gonna do that. But I ain't gonna throw up the opportunity to do that to him. But this isn't anything. To be fair, I'm not, especially after FIFA. But I'm not a hater. I'm not two-faced. Like I've said this to him. You lot have seen on street. I've said I think you're very slow. I can tell by the way you walk.
Yeah,
I've walked next to you.
I've said it. Yeah.
And he's strongly denied these
he
remarks.
He strongly denied that he was shit at FIFA as well.
And he strongly denies that he's always late as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
He denies a lot of things that he clearly is or clearly does. So
he lacks mobility and also sort of the ability to tell the truth.
KG just catching strays. But back to Maguire. Nah, the fact that he's the topic whilst we're going, that's really disrespectful, but it is what it is. He'll probably ring me later and just be like, nah, you're taking the piss. But you guys get what we mean. We got there. The Maguire, look, Rob Dawson, obviously we see him a lot in the presses and stuff. He's a really good guy. And again, I know obviously journalists' job is to investigate things, find out stuff, put that out, etc. But again, I think Rob Dawson is another journalist, in my opinion, that I think is quite credible. I don't think he would attach his name to things that are complete nonsense. He's not the first to jump in there with transfer stuff that is a bit wide of the mark, or he does his due diligence. He checks what he needs to check before he puts stuff out there. Having said that, this isn't like a shocking revelation, is it? On top of that, he's not really one for shocking revelations. He's one for going quite strong in wording on something that we kind of already knew, but he can kind of reinforce that. And I think that's what this is, because to hear him say that, coaches think this and they'll sell him for this or whatever. Absolutely. I mean, that's how we have it, isn't it? We haven't even got any sources. And if we were to say who's Man United's or one of Man United's biggest selling assets, if we're talking about that, it's him. It's Henderson in the picture as well, which we're going to talk about. But just on Maguire, again, that is why it hasn't worked for him. I know people can just say it's really simple. It's just because he's rubbish and just write him off and say that, he's a terrible footballer and stuff like that. I've never gone that far. I just think for the level of Man United and how Erik ten Hag wants to play, it's not going to work. It just isn't going to work. And isn't the standard of Man United. Not just captain, I think just level of centre half personally. Even before Erik ten Hag came, I think we could see that. And I think that the biggest mistakes that were made around Harry Maguire, which maybe could have been different, you never know. And again, people may say, nah, no chance, no chance. But I really do think, and I'm probably wrong on this actually, but there was a bit of me that maybe thought the captaincy thing is like what really tipped it in the wrong direction. When you gave him that much influence and that much power so soon under Ollie, I feel like that just took him into a different realm. And then could he have been different if the spotlight was just off him and he was just a regular player, like a squad? Say he came in like a Lindelof, but the problem is that he couldn't, because he came in for 80 million quid. We wanted him for ages. We wanted him to be the starter, the main guy, and it was all wrong from the beginning. And I'm not going to sit here and think, actually, at the time, I wasn't like, just pay the money. We need him. We really need to set about. You know, we had Jones and we had Jones, Smalling, and obviously Lindelof and Bailly at that time, and it just wasn't working. We're just like, we need, Rojo had already gone and things like that. It just wasn't. We needed someone, and you saw him in the back five at Leicester, and you sort of, do you know what? Yeah, that could work. Just pay the money.
Right at the World Cup the year prior as well, and I think we'd seen, a Liverpool side that had spent a lot of money on a centre back and seen it really galvanise them and their fortunes. Not to say that he's Virgil van Dijk, because he's not, but we thought, maybe that's it. Because we're constantly, for United, for a decade, we've been searching, haven't we? We've been searching for something. Oh, this is going to be the one. This is the thing that's going to fix everything. And we thought that would be part of it with Harry Maguire. And like you said, in retrospect, making him the captain so quickly after coming for 80 million, talk about pressure on top of pressure unnecessarily. No one's really going to probably ever live up to that. I've said before that I've legitimately, and not even from a condescending thing, I feel bad watching him, particularly recently under Ten Hag, because I just go, you cannot do, and you're not the kind of player that fits what this manager wants at all. You had your issues last season under the manager that, still bought you for 80 million and wanted you as the captain. There were still massive red flags going on at that time. But yeah, red flags. But now it's even more clear to see. And you don't need really Rob Dawson to come out and say, the staff have concerned about, him rushing out or his lack of ability. The eyes can tell you, because he doesn't play the majority of the games. And when there's a big game, we know who the centre-back pairing is going to be. It's Varane, it's Martinez. If something is wrong with either, maybe Maguire will come in, but sometimes this season, sometimes he hasn't as well, because again, sometimes the game doesn't suit for him. So, I think it doesn't take, real insider sources to suggest that if a good offer came in at the end of the season, and make no mistake, because he's not been playing and because he's an England international, clubs will be looking around going, I reckon we can get Harry Maguire in the summer for a price that isn't 80 million. A decent price will probably come in. So that's a quick win for a team that this or club this summer that might need to raise cash to offset FFP and spend, because we do need to spend as well. So he's going to probably be a sacrificial lamb for that. And ironically, it might end his United career, depending on how this season ends up. He might have lifted more than one trophy come the end of it. Could you imagine?
Yeah, he could have his most successful season yet. Well, I think this is probably the first time he's won something, isn't it? Apart from promotion, like at Wembley or something like that, or whether he's come straight back up. But in terms of a trophy, I'm pretty sure that's the only thing he's won. And he's 30. Harry Maguire's 30 now, and I just feel that he is a sort of player as well. We've seen what his mentality is and what he thinks of himself, how strongly he backs himself, and what his mentality is like. I don't think he'll be fazed by this. He proves he's fazed by the things that he says, but also the type of person that I think he is the sort of that'll go, that's fine. There'll be offers for me. I'll go and play. I ain't staying here. Yeah. That sort of thing. I don't see him as just going, I want to stay and fight for my place. And there's no point in doing that. Erik ten Hag's made it abundantly clear. Like we said right at the start, it doesn't matter what he says in the press conferences. It clearly didn't matter that he came straight in and said, hey, I remember his words. I was there, wasn't I? Me and KG was sat there.
He's the established captain. He'll remain the established captain. That's it. And everyone at the time, I remember the reaction was so like ferocious because everything else Ten Hag had said was excellent. People were raving about it. And but even already there were some people going, oh, here we go, another
But we
puppet,
said that. Remember on this channel when we said,
and we said at the time,
when he comes, he's going to say words.
And we also said, I remember saying specifically afterwards, I said, listen to his words. He said he's the established captain. He never said he's going to be starting every single game. He just said he's the established captain. And also he said, I've only been here for like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know the players good enough to say, you know, who the captain should be or anything like that. Basically, I could come in and just take it off him and put it on someone else. But I'm smart enough to know he's not going anywhere right now. This is a club that's had a dressing room that has been broken for the last 12 months. Why would I go in and throw a load of petrol on a fire? That makes no sense. Leave it as is. Let me try and sort of get people together. And also then after a season, we can figure it out, which is basically what he's done. You know, it's really as simple as that. And he's handled it, like you said, to perfection.
He has. He's done it absolutely perfectly because actually it wasn't the one in Thailand with the first press conference. I think it was the one not in the cream suit. It's the one at Carrington when he shook everyone's hand and it was his first in-person one. I think it was that one. Because remember he done one that was like a reveal video where he done in the cream suit. That was just like, that was just in-house media.
The Carrington one.
Oh, was it? So it must have been the same day then. Okay. But he done one with the in-house media that kind of went out as a pre-record, and then he done one with the journalists. That one he done with the journalists, the first time he saw them, was the one where he said that, I think. Because once we got to tour, I think it became a non-thing because Ronaldo had taken over by then, when all the journalists were bothered asking about that while we were asking about football stuff. So he already put it to bed really, really early. And then he put it to bed even secondly earlier than that, also just after that again, by basically taking him out the squad after them first 2 games. He'd made his mind up. But the difference is there was no way back from then. So yes, he took Luke Shaw out of the team after we played Brentford. Yes, he actually took off Martinez at half-time against Brentford. There was a lot of going on. We were like, bloody hell, wow, even Martinez, this guy, that doesn't look... And even that, people made too much of that. They said that Ivan Toney done all this stuff on Martinez. And when I watched it back, even I didn't want to see the actual... And I remember watching it. It wasn't like Martinez made millions of mistakes. It was just a whole capitulation, like it always has been. Yeah. And there was one in particular, I think he was on the line or something, couldn't clear it.
And they were like, I can't believe you took him off. Can't believe you took your guy off. And everyone, and then again, rightfully so, people said at the time, they've said, it's not, everyone was playing badly. Look at it another way. It might have been out of preservation, i.e. you're new to the league. It's not going well. Get him off because it could go a lot worse. You know?
Exactly. Then he brought Malacia and Varane on that half, you know, and we didn't concede, luckily, and kept it at 4-0. Kind of what we should have done at Liverpool, ironically, to keep the score not respectable because it was still embarrassing, but you get my drift. But after that, that was it. That was it. There was no, you know, that shows me a manager who'd already made his mind up, but you just wanted to see, you know, I've kind of made my mind up on this player, even from pre-season and the type of profile that he is. However, he's the captain. I've said he's the captain. I'm going to give him a chance. We start at home to Brighton. We don't have no striker. We play Christian Eriksen in the false 9. It doesn't go to plan. We lose 2-1. I always think that game was 2-0, but it wasn't. It was 2-1. Because the second goal was a goal we scored, was like an own goal. Yeah. So we lose. Yeah. And basically, and didn't score, conceded 2. You know what? We'll go again at Brentford. First game, we'll go again. You get absolutely mauled. Then he knew that game with Liverpool, I have to change this now. And then because we played well against Liverpool as well, then we went on that little run, didn't we? Up until we played City. That was it. That was it. And he's never looked back. So I just think he's played it perfectly. He's played a blinder. When we talk about players who need to raise money, Harry Maguire is going to be at the top of that list. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Another player that would be sort of at the top of that list as well is Dean Henderson. Because actually what we're talking about here in general is Erik ten Hag having to raise funds and at the same time as trimming this squad down, at the same time as trying to rebuild this squad. He's trying to do 3 things.
Yes, indeed. So once again from Rob Dawson was listing some other players that could be potentially sold by United this summer. He says Scott McTominay is wanted by Newcastle. There's also interest from Premier League and Europe in the aforementioned Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof and Dean Henderson. And focusing a bit more on Dean Henderson, Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic I said that Dean Henderson is due back for Nottingham Forest in 3 weeks. The Manchester United future of him is to be decided at the end of the season, but he could be sold to raise funds. 2 clubs have made contact about a permanent transfer. So already, Man United have received 2 bits of attention, interest from 2 clubs, don't know where, don't know who, for Dean Henderson. And he's another one. We were saying, to be honest, last season, weren't we? Last summer, we were saying, raise cash, sell Dean Henderson. And I remember at the time, there was quite a lot of pushback when it was, he's gone on loan to Forest. No one went, that could have been a 25. That could have been a 30.
Yeah.
That could have
probably
been
still can though. It probably still can.
It can. And we kind of, it smoothed over a little bit because it was like they're paying for all of his wages, and we know that he's on a fairly big contract for a backup.
100 grand a week.
Over 100K a week. And he's still got a lot of time left because he signed that, 2 years ago? So I think he's still got like 3 years left.
Ollie promised him, didn't he? He said he's going to be England's number 1, and he's no doubt.
Yeah.
But, it was an Ollie period.
And United's number 1, as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you look at that, and to be honest, I said that you could probably get, I know goalkeeper's different, you could get 30 to 40 with Dean Henderson.
40? Could you get that upwards of 30?
English goalkeeper with 3 years left in his contract.
How long has he played for? How many games he played for Man United? Has he played over 50 games?
No. And to be honest, I know he's injured, but he's lost his spot at Forest.
Exactly, because Navas came in.
Navas came in.
And most of his work was done with Sheffield United prior to that, hasn't he? Let's see how many, because this goes off how many Premier League caps as well. Let me have a look.
I think his stock's certainly fallen, I think. I don't think this loan move.
But he's only 26. He's a young goalkeeper, man. That is a, he's played, right, there you go. So he's played how many Premier League appearances? He made 13 last season. And then in the Championship, he's played 46 times. In Sheffield United, played 36 times. And for Forest, he played 18. So let's just round it up, 20 odd. 30, 40, 50, 60, just under 60 odd games in the Premier League. But 13 for Man United. It's not that much. I thought he played more than that.
30. Maybe 30 million, 35.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But he is young. And if you give him a new home, he has got ability. Listen, I know how it's, he's spoken out in the media in frustration. And actually, I was really angry with him with the way he did that. And I don't think he should have done it the way that he did. It come across really arrogant. But when I step back and think of a lot of how the football club was run in that moment and how much gas he would have got from likes of Ollie, we literally heard Ollie say in press conferences, he's going to be Man United number 1. Basically, he's going to be England number 1. Oh, Dean. Oh, yeah, he's amazing. And David De Gea literally went away for the birth of his child. And it was like Dean Henderson became the number 1 because of that. When David De Gea was playing all right. And then he was the number 1. And David De Gea, do you remember that period when David De Gea was literally playing in the cup games?
Yeah. And
then he got COVID. Dean got COVID.
What was wild as well is that not only that, but the cup games were more important at that point of the season. Anyway,
so we were like, actually, we ain't going to win the league. We ain't going to do anything. So, and then he went right up into the Europa League final. And then obviously he lost on pens. But, it was bizarre what was going on at that time. But that's what it was. He was the main keeper in the Premier League. There, look, 13 Premier League games he played. Although it did feel like more than that, and he played 4 times in the FA Cup, 4 times in the Carabao Cup that year as well. So actually, in that same year, it says he played 5 times in Europa League as well. So it was the latter stages actually.
He played everything. He played some big games in the Premier League towards the end of that season because he played, obviously, when we beat City at the Etihad, because he started off the move and he threw it out. And people said, yes, see, that's what we need. We need distribution, because he threw it to Luke Shaw, and then Shaw went up the pitch and scored that great goal.
Yeah.
And then we played Liverpool at home. And I thought he was really poor in that game. And not just like, when people...
That's when they had no players. That's when they had no centre-backs.
Exactly. And Liverpool somehow qualified for top 4, even though they were miles out of it. And they sort of got to a run at the end of the season, ended up getting top 4. I remember one of the goals Mo Salah scored, and he was miles out of position, Dean Henderson. His angles were horrifically off. And at the time, I thought... That's an empty stadium, that's not even 78,000.
Yeah, we hadn't seen Dean Henderson do it packed. Oh yeah, because it was the COVID season, wasn't it? Yeah, it
Yeah.
was the freaking Project Restart season, and that was one of the biggest reservations we had, wasn't it? That he hasn't done this, in front of 75,000 people at Old Trafford. Which again, we would have supported him, but it was like we haven't seen it yet. And then he got obviously annoyed that Ollie gave him fake promises, and then he obviously had to go on loan while Ollie was still there. Ollie got sacked. He comes back and goes, "I ain't staying here. I ain't even letting a new manager see me. This club's lied to me."
Well, it wasn't even that. It wasn't even that, was it? Because so again, he was going to be last season. People forget he was going to come into that season as the number one.
As the number one, yeah.
Pre-season, he got COVID. David De Gea got his spot back, and then De Gea was playing well. So Henderson, for the entirety of the season, spent the season on the bench.
Yeah.
And then that's why he came out in this interview and basically said, I didn't care that Erik ten Hag was going to be the manager of United. Yeah. I didn't even want to go back to training. I didn't, I just wanted a loan deal because I knew if the manager saw me,
he'd had enough.
Keep me in and blah, blah, blah. And again, I said this at the time. I sympathize with, broken promises and all that kind of stuff. And goalkeeper, it's different because you don't just work your way into the side. You're either playing or you're not. That's just it. So I can understand the frustration. And you have to back yourself as an elite sportsman or athlete. We spoke about this with Harry Maguire the other day. But at the same time, do realize who's ahead of you in David De Gea. Do realize that sometimes, especially as a goalkeeper, especially as a young player, there's a lot of luck that goes into whether you make it as a proper first team player or not. About opportunity, timing. Just ask Marcus Rashford. If it don't work out, you go, nah, it didn't work out. I'll go out on loan. I think he probably thought this loan was going to be more akin to the Sheffield United loan, when everyone was like, I tell you what, he's not bad. And Sheffield United were like fifth. Or if the season hasn't stopped with COVID, legitimately, there was a real possibility. Sheffield United, they could have been in the top four. Legitimately.
Well, with Wilder at that time, they were flying, five at the back.
Yeah.
Very difficult place to play. Nobody wanted to go there.
And then the season stopped and they dropped off massively. And it could have been completely different. And I think he maybe thought that Forest, the resources, the amount they were spending in the summer, Jesse Lingard comes in, all this stuff. They're thinking, I take Forest, they're going to have a go.
Yeah, it's going to be perfect.
And actually, like anything, they're in a relegation dogfight. And they've sort of managed to get out of it a little bit.
United. It could have been relegation dogfight. That's fine. He's proved that already. He's proved he can do it. But exactly, you're right. He just had this whole different image of what it was going to be, this whole different experience that he'd mapped out. And couple that with, again, being gassed up so highly by the likes of Ollie and people in charge at that time who told him that. They said, you are going to be this, you are going to be that. And the trajectory was kind of showing that until they then revoked it and then made David De Gea number one again. Do you know what I mean? And then left him on the bench and then Ollie got sacked. So it was a terrible time. But having said all that, like you said, 26 years of age, which is still very young for a goalkeeper. I wouldn't even say he's in his prime yet, because he still hasn't found a permanent home where he can call home, play week in, week out, and know he's settled. He hasn't had that in his career yet. He's going to want to find a home, and I think he will find a home this summer. 25 million. 30 million tops, I think. Maybe like a 32 plus, something like that. Maybe 35 actually at the absolute upper end, I think. You never know. I think 35 million. But again, he's someone who would be part of trimming that squad down. And we kind of did this with Marcel just to finish off, like, what could we raise in player sales? And I think he said something like 250 million. And obviously, instantly, I went, bloody hell, really? What?
Who?
But then I thought, I always like to give Marcel, like, he might say something that might shock you straight away, and then you calm down and listen to not the how he's saying it, but what he's actually saying. I don't think it's that much, but I was just trying to quickly, what do you think we could raise just from player sales and what's realistic in terms of outgoings in one transfer window? Off the top of your head, just a rough ballpark if you just collect some names and figures.
Probably, I reckon we could probably raise maybe about 100, maybe 100 million, something like that. In terms of people going, big hitters would be, maybe 120, actually, thinking about it. Maybe Henderson, Maguire, McTominay.
Henderson, Maguire could get you 90 million.
Yeah, and then McTominay, considering it's Newcastle and they want him, you could actually probably overcharge that one. You'd be smart too. You could overcharge that. However, the one thing I would say with that is I think United will be more than aware of this. There obviously is the whole, you have to have so many people in your squad that actually came through your academy and are counted as homegrown. And people like Henderson and McTominay, that's two. And, you know, in terms of people in your active squad. And that is also something to consider, because sometimes people do stay for that reason. You know, we've got a quota to fill
just
as
in the
Premier
squad
League rule.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be something to consider. But those names, you would say, and let's be honest, they're names that have been lightning rods for criticism. And I think the majority of fans would look at them and go, that's good business if we can move them on, because they're all perceived to be not good enough, are they? So maybe 120, something like that. 250 is probably a bit wide of the mark, but 120. And to be honest, plus the wages, because you think about people like Phil Jones are going to go on a free, actually Twanzebe are going to go on a free. So you could get maybe, 120, something like 130, which plus whatever our budget is, that's enough to have a Man United summer, even with Qatari ownership and FFP issues.
Yeah, I think the first thing is get that squad trimmed down and see what we've got in the budget. But actually, you kind of need to do both simultaneously, because you don't want to waste time. You want to have people involved, ready. We've seen plenty of reports that saying Erik ten Hag wants his new striker in place by pre-season. Like, we don't want to be doing what we done last year, where we're going into the first. We've done it almost every single year, where we go into the first day of the season, where the window's still open for another few weeks, and we're just not ready. We wait for something to go wrong, then we go, oh, bloody hell, go get this person. Well, we did it with Cavani. We didn't have no striker. We waited the whole summer to go and get a guy that had been injured for ages and was for free for the whole time. And then we went short-term fix. Let's just get him.
But that was a weird window as well, wasn't it? Where technically it was in like October and all that kind of stuff. And Ronaldo comes on the last day of the window. Last summer, Martinez and Eriksen, they're not even on tour. You know, they played first game, but they weren't ready. We weren't ready. It was clear. We didn't have Anthony. You know, we didn't have Casemiro.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but it'd be but now this is, again, that was Erik ten Hag's first transfer window, and the club had just come off its worst season ever. I think it would be very interesting. I'm really intrigued and actually excited. I never say that normally. I never say that about a transfer window. I should probably choose my words carefully, because excitement is not usually one of the words that you use. But I'm going to say I am. I'm going to say I am, because Erik ten Hag's had the chance to be there for a whole year and instill exactly what his expectations are. Before, it was he had meetings about coming to Man United, firefighting, Ronaldo's situation, this, that, and the other. It's very, very chaotic. Now he's had a year to put through his rules and principles. Don't think that them rules and principles are just on the pitch. He's had a year to work with John Murtough, Richard Arnold, etc., and they know what he needs. It's whether or not we can be efficient enough to deliver it when he needs it. I want to see us going in for deals really quickly, really strong, and us being ruthless with sales as well, getting them done really quickly, really ruthless.
He probably not from last summer. To be honest, he probably said the moment ended, he went, next summer I want this person, this person, this person. Start working on it now. And also, by the way, because remember I remember this all the way through last summer when Spurs were doing all their signings quickly in a row, and then people going, see, why aren't we doing what Spurs is doing? Why aren't we getting Basuma? Why aren't we getting Richarlison? Oh, they've got a centre back from Barcelona. What's going on there? And we said it at the time, like, just wait. Just wait. It's not about who does it necessarily. Obviously, you want to have a good speed, but it's not about who does it the quickest. It's not about who gets in all of these players. You go, oh, they're doing business. They're doing business. Let's see what happens.
Got to be the right players, eh?
Got to be the right people, eh? It's clear, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Smash a like on the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Thanks for joining us this morning. We've got a tactical view with Cam, actually, Casemiro special coming out later on. So make sure you're here for that. Oh, yes. Make sure you guys are here for that. And then you know what it is after today? It's the lead up to the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? Players going to be back in training today. Probably get some pictures of people coming back, some smiles. We'll get a press conference and stuff done tomorrow. Previews for the game. It's all back to business. It is all back to business. So we can't wait. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Take care. Peace.